Sorry, lovely people, for this really long absence. I've been down with severe flu, which I usually get, from my 4-year-old every year. This has become an annual ritual to get knocked down by flu this time of the year, almost every year. I'm still not fit, but I simply couldn't stop myself from commenting on the goings on. Whilst America and the West have continued to help Israel in massacring more innocent people in the occupied Palestinian territories and Lebanon, one story that has caught my attention is George Galloway's latest encounter with a Sky News chap in Russia. As many of you would know, that as many as 36 heads of state this week gathered in Kazan in Russia to take part in Brics summit. So much for America's claims on having isolated Russia globally. Right, this is what America has been claiming up until now, isn't it? But then 36 heads of state and all powerful countries, India, China, including Saudi Arabia, America's ally, they all traveled to Russia. And you should see the visual you can see on the screen. That really tells you the level of isolation that America has caused for Russia globally. Anyway, also in Kazan was our own George Galloway, who took to Twitter to inform his clash with a reptile, his word, reptile from Sky News in Kazan. He wrote, and I quote, "Just clashed with a reptile from Sky News in the corridor outside Putin's press conference, wandering around the Brics halls in a way no Russian journalist would be allowed to do in our own free country." End of quote. By own free country, he means the United Kingdom. Now, George didn't stop here. He then uploaded the entire 7-minute plus video of his encounter with the Sky News chap to heap more embarrassment on the propaganda channel and its representative. Now you can see from this video how this chap from Sky News first tries to corner George Galloway on Russia for allegedly invading Ukraine, and then moments later the same Sky News chap expresses his displeasure. Yes, he does. Expresses his displeasure. Why? Because the Brics member states have called for an end to the ongoing genocide of innocent men, women, children and babies by Israel. I'm not making it up. Watch this interview. I will play that interview in its entirety and see. He uses this terminology, he changes the terminology, which has been the part of the Western media's toolkit, to make it, to justify his criticism, justify their criticism or justify their opposition to the call for ceasefire. But the reality is that he was essentially opposing the call for a ceasefire, call for an end to the ongoing genocide. Now, as expected, George Galloway demolishes the propaganda so brilliantly. Watch the video and decide how we have badly missed this man in the British Parliament, and we need more George Galloways in the British Parliament to deal with our corrupt politicians.
Why is it significant?
Well, it's the beginning of a new world, I think. It's the Bretton Woods of the 21st century. It's the beginning of new financial, economic, and even political structures which will greatly influence the lives of the vast majority of the population. Probably not ours in Britain. We'll be quite late to the party, I think. But given that half the world is already in Brics, that Brics already is bigger than the G7, the so-called giant 7 economies, it's axiomatic that our children and children unborn are going to feel the benefits of Kazan 2024.
Ukraine might see this very differently, of course. You say influence the lives of people. Russia's influencing the lives of Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, because you're Sky News, that's what you have to ask. But you and our governments, the governments of the West, are wholly responsible for the crisis in Ukraine.
Russia's not responsible.
You're too young to know, but in
Didn't Russia invade Ukraine?
You're too young to know, but in 2014, the West, including our country, overthrew the elected president of Ukraine and set in train
Didn't Russia
a civil
invade
war.
Ukraine?
Listen, I'm here to talk about the Brics. If you want to talk about the Brics, we can.
Isn't
do
that all entwined with
you
the
just
Brics?
bumped into me in the corridor. I have, I think, graciously agreed to talk to you, but don't try and put me on track. Okay?
I'm just asking you questions,
No, but
following
you-
up
but-
following up your answers.
Yeah.
Are you supportive
You-
of the war in Ukraine?
What are you looking for? A gotcha? I have spoken.
It's just a simple question.
I
Are you
have, well,
supportive?
it's a simple question with a simple answer. I have adumbrated my view on Ukraine in millions of words over the entire
about just one
period.
word, yes or no?
No, there's no one-word answer to it, as you very well know. I have extensively written, spoken in Parliament, out of Parliament, on the crisis in Ukraine. You're welcome to consult it.
So you can't say that you
I
either
presume you
support it
know
or
how
don't
to.
support
I
it.
presume you know.
Are you
how
supportive
to
or not?
Google. How dare you ambush me with these trial questions? I'm here
It wasn't an ambush, I
for
asked
the.
for an
It is an ambush. It is an ambush.
You didn't think I'd want to ask?
7/8 of your questions have been about my attitude to Ukraine. This is an international conference of some importance. And I'm here because half the world is here. You don't care about that. You care about your cheap Murdoch tabloid agenda. And that's probably, I know he doesn't, but you're trained in the Murdoch School of Journalism. And everyone watching already knows that. So
We've never crossed
I
paths.
have extensively expanded on my views on Ukraine, and I tried to give you the short version. In 2014, Western governments overthrew in a violent coup the elected government of Ukraine. I should be asking you the question, why did Sky News support that violent, illegal coup? Because that's the origin of all the disaster that has overtaken Ukraine.
How about Vladimir Putin's comments to the violence in the Middle East should end? Isn't that a bit rich, given that he's currently waging war in Ukraine?
What a take. Do you know that even your audience wants an end to the violence in the Middle East? Even your audience wants that? But you have to twist that.
Shouldn't there be end to violence all
You
over the
have
world?
to twist that into an attack on Russia
Why
in
don't
Ukraine.
you-
Why don't we
if you
talk
call for
about
an end to
Palestine?
violence there,
Why
why
don't
not
we
call for an
talk?
end to
Why
violence
don't
in
we
Ukraine?
talk about the genocide in Gaza? Why don't we talk about the illegal bombardment of Lebanon? Why don't we talk about mass starvation? Why don't we talk about the ethnic cleansing on a scale not seen since the Second World War? Why do you have to talk about it in relation to Ukraine? I'll tell you why. You came here with a cheap agenda to attack Russia. But here's a point
Sky
that
News is covering all of those topics in those locations.
Here's a point.
I am the Moscow
Here's a-
correspondent. That's why I'm
yeah,
covering Russia
here-
and Ukraine.
here-
and my question
here-
to you
well,
is, do you call for an end
here-
to the violence
here-
in Ukraine?
Of course.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
So you don't
Just
support
like the
war in
Brics
Ukraine.
did. Just like the Brics
So you
did.
don't support
I've
the war?
told you that I have spoken on Ukraine. If you were a journalist of any note coming to interview me, you'd already know my views, extensively revealed over 2 years and millions of words. You asked me about the Middle East. In the Middle East, there is a Holocaust going on. Even your audience considers it as such. Yet you want to condemn the call by the Brics yesterday for seeking an end to that Holocaust?
No
You
condemnation,
want,
I'm purely asking.
you twisted it in your very Sky News way into an attack on Russia in Ukraine. Why can't you compartmentalize in your mind for a moment that a Holocaust that is condemned by all right-thinking people was condemned by the Brics here yesterday?
There's no condemnation of Ukraine.
Actually, there was a call by the Brics for negotiated ending to the Ukraine war.
In the 43-page communique.
Well, it was mentioned once, but it was mentioned. It's a significant
One more
statement.
question, if I may.
Are you sure?
The US says North Korean troops are in Russia receiving training, and the fear is they'll be deployed to Ukraine to join Russian forces there on the battlefield. What do you make of
I would
that?
have thought that was a fairy story. First of all, I'm not sure the North Korean forces need trained by anybody. North Korea has one of the most fearsome armies on the planet. And I think Russia has no need of North Korean troops. I think it's another cheap tabloid smear.
If it were
which
to
is-
happen, though, if
which-
they were to be deployed there?
If my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle.
Let's leave it there. George Galloway, thank you very much.
What is amazing is that this tyranny called Russia has you wandering around the corridor smearing Russia. That is quite something. You wouldn't get a Russian journalist walking around in Whitehall. That wouldn't be allowed, would it?
That's the point, isn't it? Let's look for that Russian journalist in Whitehall. Press freedom in Britain.
Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you do think that this platform is worth supporting and this journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.